Hello, my name is Matt Gritt. I'm a Senior Solutions Engineer for Sumo Logic. I've worked with them for the last 2 years. I'm based in Wellington in New Zealand, so kia ora. So what I want to do is in the next couple of minutes, I'll be doing a walkthrough of a sort of a 3 a.m. troubleshooting to show you what our capabilities are around our platform and around end-to-end observability. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to step through the various demonstration that we have. Feel free to ask the questions. And I'm going to basically stop the video so you can concentrate on what I'm showing you and presenting to you. So again, please feel free to ask any of the questions and I'll get right onto them. So let's kick off. So we're going to do a walkthrough of a 3 a.m. troubleshooting process for like an on-call engineer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go step by step from an alert on a service level objective. And we're going to explore the metrics to help diagnose the problem. We're going to look at traces to identify which services they're impacting, looking at our logs to confirm what the root cause is. So let's sort of step back a little bit and just talk about Sumo Logic. So Sumo Logic centralizes information regardless of the data stream. So this is basically the data comes through and gives us a greater and richer amount of information. So you can kind of see this is it's the data that comes through, and it basically is the pillars of sort of availability and performance and security, which is all about the reliability. And all of that leads into the sort of like the customer experience. So you can think of it as our unified platform. We're taking all of the information. We're taking information from metrics, the metadata about it, the logs and the traces. And we're getting all of that data and we're being able to monitor, diagnose, and troubleshoot it. So we can detect the known and unknown application issues and alert about them in real time. We can identify which services and components are impacting the application, and we can discover what the root cause is, so that we can restore it or remediate the issue going forward. So in this live demo, I'm an on-call engineer for a banking application. This banking application runs on a Kubernetes and it's on AWS. We've got a payment service that's talking to an account service that's talking to an RDS database. So all these services are mission critical and run all of our banking app locations. So it's about 3 a.m. in the morning and I get a Slack alert from Sumo Logic. So this is a kind of a normal sort of Slack alert that we would get. We can see that it is, it's an elevated error. We can see that we've got a service level, a payment service SLO error of greater than 5%. And we can see that this, this service level objective has been breached. So, I mean, I can click on the link and it will take us into Sumo Logic. And we can see what's going on there in this first dashboard. So this is what our first dashboard takes us to. So we clicked on the link and we come into this payment service error SLOs. This gives us some context around the issue. We can see that this is the outlier that caused us to have the alert. So this blue line is basically our rate of errors. The pink cloud around it is the kind of values that we expect to have based on our standard deviation and an outlier pattern. And anytime it breaches that, we have an outlier. So one of the critical, one of the most critical elements in any outage is basically being able to identify who is affected by it. So this is one of the things that we can do here. We can see, the customer IDs, who's been affected by it, and this will allow our customer support teams to better support those customers about the issue. So this is where we can see those kind of data that's going on. We can see, that our transaction volumes have changed over that particular time. Our payment gateway, how much dollars they had been transferring and how much they have now. We're looking at sort of the pods that are going on, and we can see that we've got a number of pods here. Each of these pods is having errors. We've got warning, obviously red for errors, yellow for warnings, and green for it's okay. So yeah, we can basically also see the pod memory, what's going on with the memory, and we can also see what CPU they're all using, etc. Hovering over these will give us the data that we can see about these as well. So in order to troubleshoot the SLO, we need to be able to see where those failures are coming from and which subcomponents are contributing to those elevated error rates. So we've broken the error rate by payment service into, by pods to better understand where this sort of error is coming from. So we can see few of these red pods, and we can click on a pod and it will give us a load of summary data. We can see the details. We can see that we can jump to the logs associated with that particular pod. And we also can see that we can look into the infrastructure of that pod. So we can see, we can look at it, including, information about CPU usage, memory usage, crash loop backoffs, anything like that. We can see that we have some troubleshooting links. So this is our entity dashboard, log searches, tracing, and metrics. We can also see that you can go down and look about more information about the particular pod, get more information about the deployment, the services, the namespace, the nodes, and the clusters. So we have all of the aspects here that you'd expect from sort of like a Kubernetes environment. So cluster, node, namespace, service, deployment, and pod. So because we can see that there are a lot of these pods that are red, it's not a single pod that's having the problem. It looks like it's the problems across many of them. So it's a consistent problem for it. So we might want to look down into a more detailed view of the deployment. So let's go and have a look at the deployment. So let's go and have a look at the entity dashboard. So the entity dashboard over here on the left shows us the deployment is part of the mobile banking production K8 cluster. And it lives in the mobile banking namespace. So we've got a lot of information here. We can see pods running, pods failed, what's going on. We've got a lot of connection errors. We can see which pods are running, which pods are failing. We can, got information about what errors we have here. So this is something that we might want to have a look at in a minute. What pods are running and restarts. We've got a great deal of information coming through. Again, the CPU usage and the memory usage of these things. So we can see that there's a few things going on here. We've got the limit of the memory, etc. What pods have been terminated. But I want to go back up to this here. What we want to do is we can see what this error is and what's happening to it. We saw there was a lot of connections being refused. So what the best thing we can do is start to look at the tracing for this particular aspect. So coming into the infrastructure area, we can see that we have the troubleshooting links again. And one of these is the traces. So clicking on that will brings us into our tracing. So we can see here that by diving into the traces, we get a better understanding of what's happening in those transactions between the payment service and the account service. So we're looking at these transaction traces, and basically what we want to do is we want to make sure that we're saying like, hey, we want to know number of errors is greater than 0. So we're getting just the error, just the number of errors is greater than 0. So this is basically saying, hey, more than 0 or less than, 0 or more. But actually what we want to do is we actually want to make sure that it's the number of errors we're looking at for these traces is greater than 0. So it's only going to show us those traces that have an issue. So we can see here, these are a breakdown of these. We can see that this particular trace ID has 6 errors. So we can click on this and we can go into the actual tracing itself and see what's going on. So traces are made up of spans. They represent the requests, the queries, and any part of an application's code. So Sumo Logic combines the traces into an end-to-end flow for the entire application. So we can see here, these are the spans that are for that particular payment service trace. So you can see here that we've got payment service to and from. We can see that it's a payment service transact. We can see that this is a GET request. And we can see that we have some other information about these. So to follow the error, we need to see where those errors are leading up to the last span in the transaction. So this is the last span in the transaction. We can click this, and again, we've got a lot more data about it. We have a summary. We have metadata about the whole trace, where it's come from, Kubernetes, namespace, pod IDs, all this kind of information. We also have span logs, and we also have this infrastructure. Now, this is the kind of thing where it's kind of interesting. So we are now getting into what pod was running that particular payment service. So what we want to do now is looking at this. We actually want to look at the raw logs. So what we can do here is we can look under the troubleshooting links and click the raw logs. Again, this opens up in our normal sort of log query language panel. As you can see, for those that have got Sumo Logic, this is our standard sort of search function. So again, this is basically saying, go and look at the logs that are from the cluster, mobile banking production, from that particular pod with its ID, and we're looking for the container with account services. So these are the logs that are coming back from that. So what we need to do is, we can see that we have thousands of log lines. You can see that here with the number of results bringing back. And there could be just one sort of potential root cause. So one of the things that we use a lot for this, when we're doing this troubleshooting, is we use one of the functions that we have, which is our log reduce. So you can either click the button or you can type it into the query. So press the button, it writes it in here. So the log compare will go through every single one of those 3,445 log lines, and it looks for pattern matching. It uses machine learning to look at them and work out what the patterns are. So we can see just how many of a particular log line we've coming back. So now this makes it a lot easier to find out what's going on. So as we're looking down here, we can see this is probably a big issue here. So what we're looking at now is we're looking at this, and this is basically saying, yeah, our service here, this is unable to acquire a connection. It's too many connections. So what looks like to be happening, and the reason why we have this issue, and the reason why the service level objective had that alert, is it looks that our RDS instance, our database instance, is being overwhelmed with too many connections, a lot more than it can handle. So as the on-call engineer, my first priority would be to restore the application. So letting the customers get back to their work, and we can basically identify how to fix the root cause. So to remediate the issue, I can either increase the memory allocation and the max connections allowed for the RDS, and that should alleviate the problem. So that's one way we can use the system, from having an alert to the payment service. We can use our Explorer to find out what's going on. We can work through the traces and see what's happening in those traces, break them down into the individual spans, and use those spans to get into the logs to see what's going on. And then we can use such things like the log reduce and maybe the log compare, so we can get to our smoking gun. So that's it from the sort of the observability end to end. But one of the other things that we can do is we can look at another one of our functions, which is the root cause explorer. So the root cause explorer, I'm just going to make sure we're looking at the same time zone so we can see what's going on. What we're going to do is we're going to look into the root cause explorer. So this is now available from our drop downs up here. So this is going to be looking at what's going on in our AWS environment. Oh, let's just see if this is 24 hours. So this is basically showing us what's been going on in our system. This feature is part of Sumo Logic's AWS Observability solution, and it utilizes the data from things like the EC2 host metrics, the CloudWatch logs and metrics, and things like CloudTrail logs, and it populates dashboards with the most important AWS monitoring data right out of the box. So we can see that what's going on here is we can see that there are sort of groups of things which are going on. We can have a look at that in a little bit more detail. So we can sort of like go along here and we can see what's going on. We can drill down further into these little bubbles to see what's going on. So we can see that's a Lambda load. This is an issue here where we can see what's been going on. The lower down you get, the more sort of closer to the problem you're getting. And then you can see what's been going on, how many loads and errors, etc. you've got. So clicking on these will also give us more information about what's going on. We can see the data we have here. We can see that we've got a number of errors jumping up there. We can also have a look at the inspector to see what's going on and jump into the related logs and the related dashboards about that Lambda function. We might be able to look into here and we can see also about what's going on with these current things with what's been going on in our environment using the root cause and Explorer. So we can have a look, see down here what we've got here. That's Lambda function. And this is the RDS. So this is probably the lowest one we can be looking at. So this is where we look at that RDS, and we know we had problems with the database. So we can see in here, we can see more information about this. We can go into the summary and the inspector to have a look at all of these particular logs and for these. So what we can do now is we can actually go through and do all of the raw logs. We can do just the error logs, and then we can do the error signatures. So just like I did before. So I'm just going to click on that to show you what we can do. So this is where we're finding the information. It's taking us the database identifier is my MySQL. We've got the region, the mobile banking, and the namespace. And what we can do is we can probably go through that and find out any information. So at the moment, we're not getting any information coming out of that. It seems that our system is not pulling the results through that I expected. So it's not an error. So that would be something we could look at. So this is, again, some of the things we can look at. When we do have the information, we can check to see whether or not the MySQL DB had any slow query logs, and we're able to see that that maybe some of them were taking an excessively long duration in that particular outage. And once we've done that sort of run those queries, we can take them back to the applications team and ask them to either optimize the queries or help us optimize the table so that we can become more efficient and therefore reduce the sort of the chances that we cap out our database connections, so we don't actually have this happening again. So, I mean, what we could do is we could actually set up, you know, an alert, you know, or our monitors to monitor this, so that we can be a bit more proactive. We can generate log-based alerts that looks at transaction time and uses Sumo Logic's predict capability to forecast when within the 24 hours that we expect to be violating that long query limit, and you know, to stop this from happening again. So that's really it for the demo. So what I want to show you is we went from an alert to a remedial cause, to a deeper root cause. And we've been able to do that simply by following the signal through through the logs, through the metrics, and through the tracing. So when you've got a true observability platform, we can, you know, stitch that data back and forth. So we can see, hey, where did the tracing come from? What's happening in the root cause? What's happening in the logs? What's happening in the metrics? And tie them all together, so you get a better focus on solving your problems. So that's all I have today. I'm open to any questions. So if you have any questions, please feel free to type them in the Q&A section. But other than that, that's it for me today. It's been a pleasure. So thank you for being here. Thank you for doing this. Feel free to go to our website. You can sign up with Sumo Logic for free, a free trial. If you already have an account, please have a look at this. All of this information is available on our websites. So in the chat, we have a link to our sign up. You can also join us on Slack. We have a Slack channel where solutions engineers like myself and other customers talk about the ways that they've seen to improve their systems and the way they've, you know, optimized it, and how they've tackled certain problems. So feel free to jump in, ask the questions, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Thank you very much.